you're feeling good tonight, can I hear you yell, heck yeah?
Heck yeah!
Okay, most of you feeling pretty good. If you're not feeling that great tonight, can I hear you yell, heck no?
Heck no.
Thank you. Thank you. One of the biggest struggles I think society has is that it's often hard to admit when you're not feeling good. And I really appreciate your vulnerability. Thank you for both sharing, and maybe no one else is feeling bad. That's good, and I hope that things get better. I'm really nervous. I love talking. I don't usually have a big issue with doing public speaking. Last year I did a talk on parenting, and in June I'm doing a talk on vulnerability. Surprisingly, neither of those freak me out, but if you're a parent, you know that should. I think the reason is that the mental health topic for me is something I haven't really faced. And like Winston, there's been years in the corporate world where people were off, and I just thought, oh, what's that about? Keep it going, just push it through. And so I want to talk a little bit about mental health and mental illness. It's a bit of a new conversation. Many of us have been having the conversation for a long time, but the phrases get interchanged a lot. And so I want you to think a little bit about what the two things are and how we use them differently, but it also give you a little perspective on how to maybe view other people or yourself when you're reviewing what's going on for you. And mental health, essentially if you just take the word mental away, which kind of attributes to the psychological aspect, emotional aspect, you're thinking about health and illness, right? So mental health is an ongoing thing. It's something that you nurture and sustain. It's something that you work towards, and maybe it's not always going well, and you do your best to keep up with mental health, right? Mental illness is sometimes a predisposed condition, something that you are either born with or develops, and often can be related to mental health when you're not keeping up with it. So I use the example of, sometimes you have a day where you don't eat the best, right? And then after a while you're getting a little bit overweight. This is a personal experience. And then, if you let it go for too long, then it turns into something that's a little more serious. And the same thing is true with mental health and mental illness. So I just kind of want to put that out there. I don't know if a lot of people kind of consider those things. There's a lot of new initiatives going out. Bell Let's Talk initiative, you've probably seen the ads for that. Majority of companies nowadays are taking different steps to support their employees in different ways to kind of approach mental health. And so it's really important that we have those conversations. So again, I thank both of the people who are able to say that they're not feeling that great. Thank you everyone else for giving me that great energy of the heck yeah, because it helps me get through what I'm doing right now. And so I want to tell you a little story about the biggest challenge I've had in my career development. And I was a corporate trainer for many years. I moved out to Vancouver after, well, if you'd seen my talk in the summer last year, you'll know what I was running away from. I moved out to Vancouver to run away from something. And right away, I got a pretty good position with a major company. I'm not going to tell you what that company's name is, but they do online auctions. They're a great company. So I asked Winston for some extra time to talk because I have about 15 minutes of disclaimers. First, I want to start with, I'm going to sound like I'm complaining a bit about the journey, but there's some reflection that I'm going to share at the end. I want to acknowledge that everything that happened in that company brought me to where I am now, allowed me to see the things I know now, and even though it was really tumultuous at the time, looking back, I myself could have done better as well, and that's a spoiler alert. The other thing I want to say is, because we're talking about mental health in the workplace, I'm not using any examples of my current work. It turns out some of my employees have found me online, and they saw my previous talk at My Story Mondays before it turned to VoiceStory. And so I want to say hello to all my employees, in case you... I work with a really great, passionate group of people. If you have any questions, come into my office. Door's always open. Let's chat, and I'd be happy to share anything you're curious to know about my journey and anything going on, so I'd like to add that as well. So working for this company, they were a company that was really engaged with their people. It was a real cheerleading kind of rah, rah, rah company. Anyone ever worked for a company like that? Oh, good, a few of you. Like, okay, great. And it's an interesting experience because if you've never worked for a company like that, you're like, it feels a bit culty sometimes, but you also want to drink the Kool-Aid because it looks like it feels good, so let's do it. I was super keen to prove myself because I just come out of a really trying time, and I actually wasn't even completely out of it, to be honest. And so I'm hired as a corporate trainer. I'm working on a huge initiative. The initiative is amalgamating 2 major corporations. You might know an online auction. You also might know their payment system. And so I was training this, and I was really proud of the work I was doing because it was a huge initiative, and I'd never done something so grand. But I was also wearing 2 hats. I was still a supervisor, so I was training full-time all day, and then I was staying late to do the supervisor work, quality for the call center, quality assurance, stuff like that. I was loving it. And when I talk about mental health and not facing it, part of the reflection comes from that. They gave their employees free bagels every Wednesday. There was free pop machines everywhere. Energy drinks came around on carts. And that helped because I was working 14-hour days. I didn't realize the toll it was taking, but one day my supervisor said to me, hey, you didn't get those quality assurance reviews done. I said, oh, well, I've been training for 7 days straight. And she said, oh, can you stay late today and do them? I said, I guess so. I was a single guy, I didn't have much else to do, and it was Friday night, so I went and did it because I thought it was the right thing to do. Eventually, we got to a point where I developed this training program, and I was really proud of it, and the pinnacle of it was when they said, hey, we're going to send you to the head office in the States, and we're going to let you train all the trainers there. I thought, wow, what a great opportunity. Okay, this Kool-Aid's good. Right? And it's like, okay, great. I'm going to get to go to the States. They're going to pay for my flight, my hotel, but there's some other things I'll have to pay for, getting really nervous about it. And I'm wondering, okay, I just moved to Vancouver. I was run away for some problems that, sometimes mean you don't have a lot of money. So I actually took out a small loan for the trip itself. My manager, not a huge one, but my manager hadn't even spoken to me. They'd given me a date for when I was going to go. And they had also kind of entailed what would happen over the 4 days I was there, what they wanted me to do. It was mostly my supervisor talking to me. And essentially, I was geared. I was ramped, right? I get to go my first time. I'm in my late 20s, and I'm like getting to fly somewhere with my corporation. Ooh, I'm really making it in the world. And we're leaving Saturday morning, and Friday night comes, and I go, wait a second, I don't have any ticket information. I'm not sure where I'm meeting people in the morning. I don't know what's going on. So without a word, they had canceled the trip. What do you think happened to me when that happened? I went from working 14-hour days, geared and gung-ho, what I would think is an excellent employee. I wish I had 20 of me right now. At that time, not now. And all of a sudden, I got an email, one line, sorry, we'll not be flying out tomorrow, from the head of the department. Now, my world fell apart. I immediately wrote a letter of resignation, and I put it in my back pocket, and I went to work on Monday. I said to my supervisor, what happened? This is ridiculous. I got really dark. I was like, how could you do this to me? How could you do this to me? No consideration, no talking to me. The manager had only ever said hi before. I've been working my butt off, trained the entire department they were the head of. And I was just devastated. So my supervisor apologized. I think she was probably in a pretty awkward position. And slowly, my training wasn't as thorough as it used to be. I wasn't staying late to do the quality assurance. Every Friday, I'd scratch the date out on my resignation letter and put a new date for the next Monday. I was burnt out. All of a sudden, I realized I put on 60 pounds. Yeah, whoa. Even for a guy my size, 60 pounds is a lot. And I was burnt out. I was miserable. I was now kind of getting myself back into some of the things I was running from. And I'd never said, hey, are you depressed, Mark? Are you miserable? I never even asked myself. I didn't even ask for help. I didn't tell my supervisor I was miserable. And I said, I need a break. Can I take some vacation time? And she said, okay, yeah, when? I said, well, next week, ASAP. And she said, okay, well, can you teach the course on Monday? Because it's really important we get those employees out, and then you can have Tuesday through Friday off. I said, great, excellent, I'll take some time. I trained Monday. I was there for 18 hours on that day. And at 4 o'clock that afternoon, my supervisor came and said, hey, we need to cancel your vacation. So guess who called out sick for a week? It was me. I was off for stress, but I didn't tell anyone I was off for stress. And I was also what I call it was like a knit, what do they call it, a knit fit. I had a little bit of a hissy fit, right? And I was like calling out hissy fit. And that was pretty much the downward spiral of the rest of the time at that company. Now, again, I want to re-emphasize that this company actually was really good at engaging their people. They did a lot of transparency, authenticity work. One of the things that I think they were challenged with is that they were booming, and they had all these people who were super special at doing this job, and then they made it up the ladder, and no one helped them learn how to be a leader. And I eventually quit. I actually gave the letter. There's another story of what went miserable for that, actually. I actually asked to talk to the manager. I realized I had no relationship with this manager. I realized I was feeling hurt, and I asked to talk to the manager, and they made me wait till the end of the day. They were meeting, and then they were like, after this meeting, you can come in. Then they came out at 5. It was supposed to be 4. Hey, can you wait another hour? Can you wait another hour? 7 o'clock rolls around, literally 3 hours later, and I just bust the door open, slam the letter on the table, total TV, like movie scene, and I said, I've been miserable here for this long, and I pointed at the series of dates that were crossed out. And one of the things I wrote on, like Ride the Wave kind of wrote on, was I said, in 1 year, this building won't even be here. And 1 year later, they closed the center down and then moved it back to the head office, and I felt kind of bad about that, actually, in the end. I didn't actually make it happen, but I felt like manifestation can be a weird thing. So when, give me another moment to laugh at that joke. And so I leave, I'm miserable. I had stocks, I had payout, I had lots of vacation time because they'd never given it to me. So I coasted. I was like off work for like 13 months. I was playing online video games, totally getting worse. Never seeked help until, of course, all the money ran out and then I had to go look for a job again. Excuse me. How could they do that to me? So I'm now in a position at my current job where every day I get to be the same person I was in that situation as an employee and the boss, the manager who didn't have a relationship, didn't communicate. And so it was easy for me to reflect on what they could have done better, right? We had no relationship. They never talked to me about the project. They could have easily have come and said to me, hey, this is how it's developing. We're hoping to send you away. It might not work out. Or, hey, someone at head office canceled it. I'm sorry. Anything would have worked, right? Very easy. In June, I'm also going to speak at the vulnerability talk, and that one feels a little more natural for me. And thanks for having me here because I'm feeling pretty vulnerable right now. But what I didn't do at that time is think about what I could have done better. And so when we talk about mental health in the workplace, I think one of the most important things from my experience that is needed to sustain a mental well-being for all of the people involved is everybody has to take accountability for what's going on. At that time, I had a little crush on someone who worked at head office. So guess who's pretty excited to maybe possibly go and meet that person, right? I didn't ever consider what happened in the project. I didn't go and ask. I didn't make any, any effort to have a relationship with my manager. I thought it was useless. But we all have the ability to respectfully and appropriately take accountability, take action own what we're feeling, and this is true in everything in life, not just in work, obviously. You know, I read an article once that said anytime bad parenting has happened, it's because the parent is reacting to their own stuff, you know. And I think that's true in the workplace, right? Maybe my manager felt what I call involuntarily vulnerable, right? And in my opinion, there's two types of vulnerability, and I'll talk more about that later. But they didn't know how to say to me, the company screwed up, or we screwed up, or something. I also wasn't equipped to say, hey, you know, what's going on? And so conversations, transparency, you know, we hear about these corporate values, transparency, authenticity, integrity. But posters on the wall don't always tell you how to act on those things. Who here has ever had an uncomfortable conversation at work? Who hasn't? Where do you work? Can I work there? Bailey, that's good. I like that. Yes, I'll send my resume to you. Yeah, so those aren't easy conversations, right? And I don't even like the phrase uncomfortable conversations. They're needed conversations. They're only uncomfortable because we're not equipped. And as I went through my journey, I've been in every situation where, you know, I had to discipline someone, I was being disciplined, and I've been able to note more thoroughly what's needed. And so, you know, I guess what I want to share with you from my journey, specifically in that instance, is that everybody has a part in what's going on. We have to take accountability, we have to take the steps, and we have to say heck no. Now maybe it's heck no when you want to scream because you're at your final straw, or maybe it's heck no in a loving, compassionate way because you understand that even though they pay you to be there, they might actually care about you if you open the door. It's easy to care for someone you live with. It's easy to care for yourself if you know how. But when we don't have the kind of opportunities to connect that we get in everyday life, in the workplace, we have to make them happen. Thanks.